Good evening, and it is a late one this evening. It's about 9:53 p.m. We just got back into the office from the parish council meeting. I know a lot of folks in Watson are very interested in how the commercial property issue ended up. We are going to talk about the parish council meeting tonight. Just a couple of things that happened today. Great feature on Kate Civic at www.livingstonparishnewscom/sports, and the job fair for disabled individuals who are looking for work turned out very well at the Pentecostal Church. You can check that out, www.livingstonparishnewscom. No weather or traffic. It's dark, and I hope you're not driving. If you are, please just be listening. Don't be watching. My name is McHugh David. I'm publisher and editor of the news. You can catch us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Thanks for joining us this evening. We had a parish council meeting tonight. There was a very contentious piece of that on the, I guess you can say, later in the meeting. That would be item 15. Let's run through the rest of it real quick. We'll talk about that. You know what? I'm not going to do that. If it's late, if you want to catch that part, let's talk about it now, and then I'll run through the rest of the meeting. So this was brought up by Mr. Gary Frog Talbert, who is in District 2. This is surrounded around Premier Concrete, which is in Watson. Accordingly, has been there about 20 years. Their attorney, no representative from Premier Concrete showed up. Their attorney did from Baton Rouge. There was a lot of discussion hinged around this. Eventually, Mr. Talbert said that he just feels like the process around commercial construction in the parish is being usurped by the administration. We've got a video coming out. I'll be processing it after I do this, and you can listen to Mr. Talbert talk about that. He repeated it several times throughout the meeting. Eventually, though, this was deferred. No action was taken tonight. A resolution was on the table to be sent to Parish President Leighton Ricks that was first presented by Gary Frog Talbert, seconded by Mr. Scooter Keene out of District 3. He used the word demand the parish president reset this whole process back to what a normal piece of commercial property would go through to get permitted in the parish. To bring you up to speed on the timeline, this process began for Premier Credit back in November, December of 2018, so about 10 months ago, wherein they applied for a residential permit because, according to their attorney, they believed that it was a residential building. It was where they would be homing the workers for Premier Credit, according to the attorney. He said it's a 24-hour business, so that they needed more appropriate lodging. Right now, it was permitted for 46 people. Right now, they have a refurbished barn and two trailers, basically, that hold the workers. The attorney did say that they don't have 46 workers and that they will not achieve or reach 46 workers ever. Time will tell on that one. None of that is permitted. It is all within the purview of the business. And so at the beginning in November, it was permitted as residential. And Mr. Goss, who is the owner, signed an affidavit stating such. After complaints were lodged with the permit department, they went in and inspected the property, discovering that it was, in fact, supposed to be commercial. It's not supposed to be residential. That was an inspection done by the parish president's office, the inspection division of the permitting office, as well as the state fire marshal. After that determination, which came about because of the gentleman who was routine traffic stop. He was from Honduras, had a murder charge against him in his home country, fled. They couldn't find him. He had fled in the direction of Premier Concrete. They eventually found him in Springfield, but that combined with a concerned call from a citizen, and we'll get to that in a second, led to Mr. Frog, or Mr. Talbert rather, calling the parish offices and trying to figure out what exactly was going on here. Didn't, as he told the residents there, which is the Muller family, pardon me, The father's name is Stephen, and the son's name is Chase. They expressed some concerns. Mr. Talbert told him he would have known if there was a commercial piece of property being built in his district. He about a month later ran back into Mr. Mueller and admitted he had no idea. So they went out to the property, took a look. Then the whole botched, I can't call it botched, the man fled arrest, and then they found him eventually in May in Springfield. But all of this began in March, which would be the formal inquiry by Mr. Talbert and interested parties, which would be the Muellers or some, they are the neighbors. Mr. Stephen Mueller, the father, testified, I guess you can call it testified, spoke tonight at the parish council meeting. He suggested that for many years, Premier Credit had been a good neighbor. He did use the past tense of had. He said that the noise had gotten out of hand, as well as the smell. He invited the parish councilman out to come, I guess, ascertain or smell it for themselves. No one gave a quick assent to that one, or quick agreement, rather. From there, it sort of spiraled into a discussion on, what powers do the parish council have in this instance other than send a resolution, and hence that is why the deferment was recommended by Parish Councilman Tracy Girlinghouse. It was seconded, by Jeff Ard, and they passed it 7-1. Tableau Bell was absent. Mr. Frog Talbert was the lone naysayer this evening for that. So those of you in Watson that are watching, this will come back up in 2 weeks. In that time, there's going to be a lot of information gathering. One of the things that was presented by Councilman Jeff Ard to the attorney for Premier Concrete was, did you intend to build a new privacy fence for the new dormitory, which is a requirement of commercial property, to which he was unsure of what Mr. Ard was talking about. This came after the attorney had said that his client was willing to do whatever the parish asked of him. Mr. Talbert brought up several times after that as part of a site plan, that fence would have been included, and it is his general concern that a site plan doesn't exist, and that the voice of the people of Watson is not there. It has been lost. So we will see how this develops over the next couple of weeks. Ms. Muriel Laws, who lives in Jeff Averett's district, where they recently had an apartment complex come up last year, had suggested that they had sort of lost their voice, and Mr. Talbot agreed and did not want that to happen to the citizens of Watson this year. The attorney did bring up that Talbot and his partners purchased a home after the flood and remodeled it to be their be a office that was a home. Mr. Talbot, after finding out that was not acceptable, self-reported and has started going through the process of the permit office, figuring out what they need to change, what they need to do, that sort of thing. Mr. Talbot suggested that the difference between that purchase and what's going on here is that there was no new concrete poured, no new building created, and those sorts of things. And he said he's still working through the process. The Premier Concrete's attorney did bring that point up several times, that Mr. Talbot had done that with a residential building that was on Amy Church Road, also in Watson. So again, no action taken tonight, with a resolution by Gary Frog Talbert, seconded by Maurice Scooter Keene, to send a resolution to the parish president suggesting that this needs to reboot into the appropriate commercial process for Livingston Parish commercial development and property. Tracy Girlinghouse had a substitute motion that it be deferred for 2 weeks. That came because Councilman Girlinghouse said, I just found out about this yesterday. I've had 24 hours to digest it. I need more information before I make some sort of decision. So he'll have that time, as will the whole council, to make that decision. The attorney did suggest that this was political. This was a political ploy by Mr. Gary Frog Talbert, who is running in District 2, has an opponent who declared in May. Mr. Talbert did bring up several times and on Facebook after the meeting that he had begun this back in March when he found out about it and had reported it. It had begun to go through those channels back in March. He did not develop a opponent until May. He said the reason he's bringing this back up is now that the permits have been issued for them to continue construction without any of this having gone back through the commercial process, he had concerns. Again, all of this has been deferred for 2 weeks, but that is the wrap up of that wonderful saga as it played out at the parish council. A couple other things. Brian Abels, candidate for 21st Judicial District Division D judge, which was vacated by Doug Hughes, who retired. He showed up today, said that he would be running for the seat and asked for the parish council's support. Parish Council Chairman Shane Mack did say that if you are local and you would like to run and want the support of the council, please come talk to them. They got their audit back. Interesting note from the audit, which was confirmed by a parish council finance director, that the bonds that are currently causing a deficit with the parish jail will be paid off in 2 years. So that's a little light at the end of the tunnel. There will be a vote. It was approved on November 16th for Fire Protection District number 9, a $32 per annum fee for residents or commercial structures. That will be on your November ballot, which will be where you'll have any kind of runoffs or anything like that after the October vote. The dissolution of the mosquito abatement districts was deferred as well. That's because the final financials did not come in. Councilman John Wascom suggested in a series of comments that he had done some research on it and that he believed the final cost would be $35,000. The district had received $22,000, which would leave a $13,000 deficit payable by the parish. With the final bills not in, he did not suggest where he got those numbers from. With the final bills not being in, we will not find out what the final financials look like until all of that is presented. The council did give unanimous approval for the parish president to sign I guess you'd call it a cooperative endeavor with Blaine Honeycutt of Fayard and Honeycutt. Currently, the costs will be any sort of basically expenses reasonably incurred, and they will, advance. The council is going to advance all court costs. So it's on if they win, they get paid. Is how that will work. This is all based around we have an opioid crisis here that has been discussed by the coroner, by the parish president himself, by the parish council. The council is now engaging in, via the parish, a lawsuit against pharmaceutical manufacturers, wholesale drug distributors, pharmacies, and that are accountable for the social and economic damages sustained by a client as a result of the widespread opioid crisis, the client being the parish. There was a sort of a double-edged sword on the sewer tonight. First, sewer ordinance came up it was the only thing discussed in ordinance committee. There was a lot of back and forth on that. You can check out the story, www.livingstonparishnews.com/news. It's the story we got running right now. We posted it on Facebook as well. Remember, it's $5 a month for the online. If you can't stay logged in, please don't call us right now because you're not going to get an answer. But you can email Drew at lpn1898.com. You can read all about it. There's a lot of back and forth over the bones of the ordinance, but they never. One of the things that chairman of the ordinance committee, Mr. Talbert, wanted to do was take it line by line with the author of the ordinance by the name of Mr. Eddie Idell. Mr. Idell answered all the questions that came up, but they did not take it line by line. They went through about 50 minutes of conversation, and they have now punted it to the Master Plan Committee, which will meet August 4th at 6:30. We'll be there to report on that for you. It's in the Parish Council chambers. However, the Ordinance Committee will begin talking about grinder pumps. Mr. R.C. Bubba Harris got his wish. He had brought up a couple of citizens who came and spoke about there's about 9 houses in Serene Acres subdivision that constantly have grinder pumps going out. Mr. Eric Harrell came and spoke to the council, as well as Miss Jody Carter Hoffman. Eric, they both have, Eric is an engineer who has nuclear facility and regulation experience. Miss Hoffman is a real estate agent. They have tried to work with their neighbors and use engineering experience and help to try to figure out what's going on with the subdivision and the grinder pumps that they have. And if you know Mr. Bubba Harris, you will have heard a lot about grinder pumps. And what they are doing is they're going to send the application of grinder pumps and their effect on sewer to the ordinance committee. So when we have the meeting in August, they will be talking about the ordinance committee. Will be discussing grinder pumps, their application, what is the best use. They will be looking at the city of Walker's ordinance, their municipal ordinance on grinder pumps. So they got rid of one sewer issue, now bringing in another for ordinance committee. That really concludes the parish council. It was between the committee and the regular meeting, it was about 4 hours. I just covered it in 16 minutes. We will have a story coming up about the commercial property in Watson later this evening, as well as that video from Parish Councilman Gary Frog Talbert. Please take a look at that. You can check it out on our YouTube page. We'll put it up on Facebook as well. The story will be there as well. Remember, $5 online per month. If you can't stay logged in, please let us know. Again, my name is McHugh David. I'm publisher and editor of the news. If you did join us this evening, thank you for being here on this Facebook Live. If you didn't join us and you're catching us later, we do post these, www.livingstonparishnews.com/podcast. They're free. You can watch me in video or you can listen to me on audio. I recommend the audio. It's a lot clearer if you can't watch this live as it's happening because I go and I edit it and make myself sound really great. So again, and we also had Congressman Ralph Abraham for a podcast today. You can check him out. We shared that on Facebook, and it's www.livingstonparishnews.com/podcast. Again, thanks for joining me this evening. And I am going to write all this up, and I will see y'all in the morning. We'll probably talk a lot about the same stuff. Thanks. Oh.